Hello everyone, hope you're well. I'm here today to film a very highly requested video by some of you, and it is my business startup journey. I started, if you guys didn't know, my own business in 2021 during a crazy time, and I have been asked since then to talk about the process, how I started it, what I did, how much money it's taken, etc, etc. And essentially this video is for those of you who really wanted this. So I want to start off by saying, if you don't follow me on Instagram, I will put both my personal here and also the fi.clinic Instagram. Definitely check us out, obviously, if you want to keep up to date with the business, generally everything going on. And also this video is kindly sponsored by Squarespace. It will actually fit in very nicely into this video, and they are part of the whole journey. So they're an all-in-one platform where you can design your own website, and for 10% off your very first domain name or website, I will leave my code here, but we'll talk more about them the rest of the video. I really want to make this informative, but also I'm coming from a very emotional place because it's only, I think, 6 months on. I think I properly started, I want to say I'm about 6 months in properly working. And if you didn't know and you're like, what is she talking about? I haven't been here for a while. My name's Barbara. I have been a YouTuber for 10 plus years. I started this channel when I was 17, and this backstory is very relevant. I was at college, I was starting university, I was doing all my applications, and I just fell into this world of YouTube and beauty. To begin with, I wanted to be a makeup artist. As soon as I found out, you know, MAC and makeup and everything, I just became so engrossed by the creativity. So I always knew, although I was relatively academic, I loved beauty and fashion, and, you know, being a 17-year-old, what fashion I knew. There was this part of me that was like, yes, I love makeup, but university is definitely for me. So I fell into pharmacy. Now obviously lots of different things went into it. I was possibly going to do medicine, nursing, like there were so many things that I was, you know, investigating and looking into, but fell into pharmacy. And I thought that pharmacy just fit me, my lifestyle, my knowledge, all that kind of thing really well. I think pharmacy gets a really bad rep, that people find it really tedious, really boring, but I've been really lucky that I did my YouTube for 10 years, did pharmacy, so I always had some spice in my life basically. And there was always a feeling that inside me that I knew I was never just going to do pharmacy, and I was also never just going to do YouTube. And that came really early, in around I think I want to say 2016, 2015, YouTube was thriving. Now, anyone who's been watching for a long time will know. And I did come to a point when I was, you know, working in pharmacy where I was like, wow, I'm earning, to be honest with all of you, more with YouTube than I was in my pharmacy work full time, like if I had been doing it full time. And I came to a crossroads where I was like, do I continue with the YouTube or do I continue with the pharmacy? And I made the decision where I didn't really commit to either. I just kind of dabbled in locuming and relief work with pharmacy, and I also kept my foot in the YouTube game. And I always knew that there was gonna hopefully be one day something that combines the two things together. And I found out that pharmacists can also become injectors, and I can't really remember how I came about finding this out, but I always also knew that I loved injecting. Now, pharmacists are not really known for their injecting capabilities. I would say we're very much known for just standing behind a counter and checking prescriptions and things like that. But I actually, as soon as I qualified as a pharmacist, I started working in a pharmacy where we did travel injections, I did chickenpox injections, flu jabs, and I actually primarily did that as my role. I enjoyed that part of it. I didn't actually enjoy being stuck at the back checking all day, and I loved the appointment scheduling. Like, I'd come out and be like, I've done a Japanese encephalitis vaccine, I've done this, rabies, when's my next one? Like, I really liked that appointment vibe of being a pharmacist. So I definitely think if you are, and I'm talking about aesthetics particularly, if you are nervous about injecting, yes, there is an element of it's right to be nervous, but you do have to enjoy it. And I just always enjoyed it. Injecting wasn't something that I was fearful of. So there's definitely an element of having to overcome that if you're not natural. Like nurses at the end of the day most nurses in most sectors use syringes and things like that very often, and dilutions, etc. And as pharmacists, we, you know, unless you're in that field, you don't use it as much. So as soon as I sort of found out, okay, this is what I want to do, it was about how do I go about doing that. Now this video is going to be long because I'm kind of going to go into some detail, but you can go into doing injectables and not be a prescriber of medication. Now I'm a pharmacist, I cannot, if I don't have extra courses, prescribe medication. That's a doctor's job and a dentist. But in the UK, and I don't know how other countries work, I'd be really interested to know, especially if you're an esthetician, also not quite sure why I've gone all red, how it works in your country. But here in the UK, we are able to, as nurses, certain other medical professionals can do it as well, you can become a prescriber. And I had to do an extra course in order to do that. I have done videos on this, so if you guys want to watch those, go and watch those, because it's kind of a long process. But in order to do that as a pharmacist, I had to wait 2 years to do that course. And the reason that I wanted to be able to prescribe is that certain things in the aesthetics world are needing prescribers. Now, if you are not a prescriber nowadays, there are companies and places and certain doctors and dentists who will prescribe on your behalf, but that's a whole nother thing that I didn't really want to get into. When I knew this is what I want to do, I wanted to start it properly, because I wanted to be solely responsible for my work. And if I had to bring someone else in, not only are they cashing in on my profit, but they're also part of the whole thing, and it could become messy. I unfortunately as a pharmacist had to wait 2 years in order to do this course. So in that time I was obviously doing some research about whether this was still something I wanted to do, and I also came to the conclusion where I was like, I will just be a prescriber anyway, and even if I don't want to do aesthetics, pharmacy is kind of going into that avenue anyway. When I was coming to the end was when I started to amp up my research on, okay, as soon as I'm a prescriber, what do I need to do? So courses. Now the UK, unfortunately, and I hope that this is something that will change in the near future, has no real set regulations on how to become an esthetician or an aesthetic practitioner, whatever you want to call it. Crazy. So technically anyone who wants to do it can essentially do it. You don't have to be medically trained. I don't really want to get into too much into this and what I think, and you know, at the end of the day there are, I'm sure, people who are not medical who perform amazing aesthetic treatments, etc., but it's a topic for another day maybe. Some courses cater only to doctors and dentists and nurses. For pharmacists it's a little bit more niche, and I feel like there are courses popping up, you know, around, but I did have to do a little bit more research, I think, than your average nurse or doctor. And you know, it costs a lot of money. I also want to start this off by saying that yes, unfortunately here in the UK, which to me is quite terrifying, you can do, I don't know if you can do, again, I don't even know how this could, you know, come into your mind to do, but there are only online courses that supposedly, I think, train you to be aesthetic practitioners. How you could think that you could go on to do like a lip filler or a Botox or anything, or without at least doing a face-to-face training and a complications course, like it terrifies me. But I think, and I hate to say this, I think that there is a possibility, which is why as a patient, if you're watching this, and as a client, you really do need to do your due diligence and look into the background of your practitioner. Like, have they just like all of a sudden come out the woodwork with doing something like this? Like, do they have any medical background, etc., etc.? That's your responsibility as a patient. And you know, there are risks involved with everything in this field, but you know, you need to do your risk analysis, if that makes sense. So, you know, courses, and I will tell you guys this myself, if you want to do this properly, you want to go to a few good training providers, you want to do good face-to-face training, you want to be really confident that you know what you're doing, you will more than likely need to spend around £10,000. And I'm just being realistic. I do not think that a £1,000 lip filler masterclass course will get you anything. Another thing to look into is if you're really wanting to improve your injecting capabilities, is a lot of places will also provide one-to-one training. Again, you need to do your own due diligence. I don't really want to go too much into the training providers that I used, because that was my choice. But there are some places that offer face-to-face, like one-on-one training. So you'd be you and a doctor, and you would just essentially tell them, look, I really want to become great at lip filler, or great at chin, or great at this, and they will, you know, they'll train you. But those are really expensive. Like, I'm talking like 10K just for something like that. So factor that into everything. Do more than one course. Another thing is, you're not going to be, you know, amazing at lip fillers or Botox if you just go and do one course. You need to do research, and that was why when I trained, I made sure that, yes, I did a kind of basics training, which cost me probably nearer the kind of 4 or 5K mark, and then I spent the rest of the money to facilitate for extra training. So I did an online training course with Dr. Harris, as you guys know, but that was for people who had done other training before. I did extra online courses, I did complications courses. You know, there is going to be a wealth of things, you know, there's a lot of things that you could do, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. Another thing, a complications course, you guys. These certain training places will not give you adequate complications training, so you need to factor that in as well. And you know, I could sit here and tell you guys who I recommend and who I don't recommend, and I'd love to do that, but it's so how you feel comfortable. I couldn't tell you that, look, if you spend £5,000 on X training, you will come out and be comfortable, because I can't promise you that. It's also an internal confidence, and also how much training and learning that you've done outside of that. I also was lucky enough to shadow a dentist from a training provider that I did. I shadowed her on a whole day of her clinic, which was amazing. And that's something that you need to do by networking, by chatting, and that was so helpful in just seeing how she ran everything. She gave me some tips on certain things that, you know, you don't pick up on the training days, because, you know, you're thinking about so many other things. And it was such a nice way to give me confidence before I had my first, you know, patients that I was practicing on. And I'll tell you guys, like, I was practicing on like my mum, her friends, like anyone who I could, before I met any of you, and before I had any of you coming into me. So I obviously had the challenges of it being a pandemic whilst I was doing that, so it took me a little bit longer. But I would say it would probably take you, like, from start to finish in me deciding to do this, I would say it probably took me 9 months to a year to really have everything in order. My courses, my IP, what was I going to do, etc. There is an element of, you will feel a kind of imposter syndrome vibe, like, am I okay to do this? Am I comfortable to do this? And there is an element of self-confidence that you do have to have. I was really lucky enough before I did this that I went into management, into pharmacy, and I think me having to take on something like that really gave me a taste of what working autonomously would be like. Although I had a support because I worked for a big company, it really gave me a taste of like, okay, this is kind of what running my own, although pharmacy and this are so different, it gave me a taste of, I'm gonna be the responsible one. It's you, Barbara, yourself, and that's it. You know, when you start, I wouldn't go around telling your patients that they're your first ever patient that you've treated, other than your mum, your auntie, your cousins, because of that. But it does kind of start to become more fluid the more obviously you do. And I think it's also really important to, when you do your courses, don't think that although you've trained in these courses to do tear troughs, noses, etc., that you can come out and do all those things. I definitely took what I could from the courses that I did. I decided what I thought I could do, and I've come away wanting to perfect them. I don't think that I could have gone to those training days and come out doing noses, tear troughs, cheeks cannulas, except like it would just have been too much. And instead I've decided to focus on a few things like anti-wrinkle treatments I love doing, you know, lip fillers you guys see, a little bit of structural work, chins and cheeks and things like that. But I really do know my limitations, and a lot of you who come to see me will know that I will very, very easily tell you guys, no, I cannot do that, or I cannot do that yet, or I'm doing some research, or I want to do more, you know, courses, because I'm investing in myself, but I'm also investing for you guys. And I do take that, and I take pride in that, you know, a lot. And I think that the industry is lacking that a little bit. And I think that's where certain injectors miss their mark, is you would rather have your patient for 10 years doing, you know, the things that you're really good at, rather than lose them in doing something that you're not so comfortable doing. That's a really good takeaway that I've learned as well. With aesthetics, you can really easily book a room, work in a salon, or, you know, rent somewhere in a beauty room and work alongside them. And I think if you are in a position where you're not looking to do this super full time, I do think that's a good avenue to go down. I think stretching your budget to a place where you will not be comfortable, because that's rent, that's obviously rent that you're going to be paying, needs to be factored in. There's so many places now, if you look up, that you can rent a room for like 2 hours, 3 hours, or if you contact some local salons that might have like a room, or I know that a friend of mine works out of her pharmacy. You know, there are so many options out there if you don't want to be too tied down. Now, I knew that for me, I love having this autonomy in when I work. So we decided that I would get my own space, and especially because I love to work late evenings, you know, there was a lot of factors that came into this, and also growth, capabilities, all that. I decided to go down more of the route of renting for myself as opposed to renting alongside working with someone else. But I think definitely if you're starting off small, something like renting rooms ad hoc and things like that is a great way of doing it, and it's definitely also a money saving, you know, way. But for me, I've decided to kind of scale up further than I probably would have, but in that I have more room to grow. It's still something that I'm always like, oh my god, have I done the right thing? You know, I could be making so much more money. You know, a lot of you who've come to see my studio will know it's big, it's lovely, but it's expensive. Whenever I go in there, I'm so comfortable and I just love it. And I think if I had like a time restraint where, let's say it was a salon and they were closing and I still had a client, I don't know how I would work with that just myself. But it's definitely something that if it ever came to it, I would look into and pursue. I forgot to talk about the name, you guys. Crazy. The name, by the way, Fi, I came up with so long before we started actually working, but obviously a name is super important, so don't forget that. If you haven't watched my video where I introduced the studio, then do, and it explains everything there. But obviously a business name is super important, that kind of goes without saying. But I was looking at so many different places, and obviously factor in budget, your travel, you know, going to the place, how easy it is for people to get to. I am so lucky because my studio is based in Euston in central London, and I'm 4 minutes from the station. There's parking outside if you really want to park. It's free on the weekends, it's free after 6:30. So I've kind of been able to find something that caters to everybody. For some time I was also even thinking, should I just do it from home? But I don't live in central London. It would be really hard for people to get into. I now see that follow-up appointments happen a lot, whether that be for anti-wrinkle treatments or just generally people wanting to come and see you for whatever reason. And factor that in, you guys. Actually, area is so important, and I'm so glad that we decided to kind of base ourselves where we are. We got the place, obviously there was furnishing it. I think people forget, you know, it's such a huge thing, but I needed a desk, I needed a bed. I was like, oh my god, treatment beds cost like £250, like so cheap. Guys, when you read the reviews on some of those treatment beds, it's just like, I was like, no. I did a lot of research on companies that do nicer treatment beds, and to me that was going to be an investment. I didn't have to spend what I spent on the treatment bed, but for me, you guys complement it so much. It's so easy for me to use. It's not rickety, it doesn't move. I'm comfortable when I'm injecting. Factor these things, you guys. There will be things that you will need to spend more on. Yes, you can get a treatment bed for $250, $350, but is that going to be something viable long term? Are you going to be in the space long term? These are all things to factor in. Same thing with like a desk, a nice seating area, consultation area if you can fit it in. Otherwise, if you do just have a small room, you probably just need some storage, a treatment bed, a sink facility, and then obviously comes things like stock, etc. But these are all costs that factor into the business, and that's why when I give costs of, you know, my courses cost 10k-ish, well, then you need to also factor in your rent, the deposit for the rent, furnishings, etc., first stock that you're going to buy, and things like that. So there's a lot, guys. There is a lot. I am not a website designer by any means stretch of the imagination, as I've said a lot before. And the first place that came into my mind when I wanted to start a website was Squarespace. And I'd obviously seen a lot on YouTube, a lot of other girls advertising for them, and my partner had also heard that they were really great. And honestly, guys, I got into contact with them, spoke to them and said that I wanted to start this, and they have been a pleasure to work with. I have not had any issues. Anytime I've needed support, help, they've been there. And if you too want to start your own website, guys, I cannot recommend them enough. The integration of like the software that I use with them, if you want to just use them for scheduling appointments, like there's so many options. You can create your logos. I can't stress it enough how much these things are also important. So if you too want 10% off your first domain name or website, I cannot recommend them enough, and it's why I've decided to keep partnering with them. Also think if you are starting a business like this, whether it be hairdressing, beauty, a scheduling system is crucial. This was another thing that luckily my boyfriend is very, very good at, and I have to give him all the credit. There are so many different software companies that provide, you know, cloud systems and also scheduling systems and etc, etc, and also the prices are very different. So you can go with anyone who's about £30 a month to like much more, so like 200 etc pounds a month. And a lot of these places, what they will do is also they will charge more per customer base. So let's say you have 50 patients, they charge X. Let's say you have 100 patients, they charge Y, and it kind of continues to grow. But bless him, he did so much research, and I partner with Clinic Minds. I think they're a Danish company, and again, just like Squarespace, I have had zero issues with them. Anytime we talk about it, I literally say to him, I'm like, I can book people in, I can have video consultations on there. It integrates with the website. I write all my notes on there. It's easy to use. I have appointments for, sorry, there's an ambulance going by. I can make appointments for aftercare. I can make appointments for, you know, normal treatments. If I have a phone call with someone, I can write a note about it. Like, I love how fluid it is and easy to use. So definitely, if you're starting like this, take my advice and go paperless. Chef's kiss, them and Squarespace. Just chef's kiss. I honestly can't be more happy. So do you guys see, there's a lot of things that you don't think about thinking about that make something seamless, and I hope all of you who have come to see me have also found that things do work quite well. I think it's a very taboo subject to talk about money, but I hope that this video has given you guys an idea of costs. I mean, I gave you that figure just on training costs. I didn't really go into, like I said, deposits and stock. Obviously, when you first do your stock orders, stock can be very expensive. So many things that come into it, but you essentially, when you start a business like this, you will have to continue investing in yourself. I've actually just booked onto another complications course that I'm doing. I hope to do other courses really, really soon. And I think you just need to realize that if you do come into a sector like this, you're going to be learning all the time. I learn something new every single day. That's whether I follow people on Instagram who give really helpful information, do the courses. or even just something I learned like on the job. And I think it's really important to understand that and know your limitations. I'm gonna go through a few questions that you guys asked. A lot of you guys asked questions about like actual treatments. That wasn't so much what I was going to answer in this video, just because I know it's already very, very long, but I might do a separate like TikTok or video showcasing that, so definitely follow me on Instagram. Someone asked, how did it all start? Obviously I went into that. Did you make a business plan or hire a professional? No, I did take a loan. I will be very obvious about that, just because it is so expensive. So factor that in as well. Are you able to do that? Do you have, you know, spare money going around? But starting a business, I would say give yourself a contingency fund, because it's probably going to be more expensive than you thought. To be honest, when I first started, I thought I could do all this with 10k, and it very quickly became very evident that that was not going to be the case. Someone said, how do you build clients without an Instagram following? Now, I was very lucky because obviously I have you guys watching, and I would say 80% of you come from my own following. But I would say you do need to be patient. You'd be surprised, word of mouth, and if you are good at what you do, how quickly that spreads. So I'm really lucky that now I'm really starting to see like, oh, you treated X person, and like I came from you from Y person, and you know, you came highly recommended. And I think that's something that starts to build, but you do need to be patient. And even me, I would say that I'm still patient with it, and I do have to be active on social media in order to see the gains. But social media is the way to go. I have done very minimal advertising. So if you do have a social media following, or if you are someone who wants to grow a business like this, be active on Instagram. I follow so many great accounts who I notice that they are very, very active, whether they talk about complications, results, before and after photos. That's why I'm constantly asking you guys to model for me. That is my portfolio. My social media, my website, you know, is my portfolio. And I think Facebook ads and Instagram ads I have done ad hoc, and they are helpful here and there, but your social media presence is, you do essentially, I think, need to factor in that you might need to be the face of your brand, and that's something that I took very, very seriously. Someone said, I'm a pharmacist considering aesthetics. How did you know you could inject people's faces? I did go into that, and also confidence. Someone said, did anyone else help fund fee, or is it all yours? No, it is all mine. I obviously have so much support from like my mum, my boyfriend, both emotionally and everything, and he helps me out so much. I think he's literally doing my accounts. We had a couple of things that we wanted to do today, and he's been literally working on them all day with me, more so himself, because he's definitely a numbers guy. But I have had a lot of support. Do I think that you could do this yourself with careful planning? Yes, 100%. Have you found that your own business is better than working for someone else? Yes. A lot of you will know sometimes I do my NHS work and then I go to fee later on in the day, and it just doesn't really feel like work. It also really strangely feels like I've been doing this for such a long time. And just for some of you guys who don't know, I work Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays. I'm available for video consultations more times than that, just because I take them from home most of the time. If you did ever want to come in and have a consultation with me, I do offer them both face-to-face and video, and I work evenings. My Saturdays obviously get quite busy, but yeah, I'm around, and obviously I would love to meet so many of you. Also, if you are still interested, and this is something that I'm going to just bring off the back of this video, I will be sort of not around as much in March time, especially at the beginning. So if you are thinking of having a treatment done with me, February is such a short month, so if you do want to come in and, you know, see me, definitely try and book that in, because March I've got so many things going on. Also, another thing that I'm not going to be talking about as much on my Instagram right now, I am still looking for lip filler models. I'll put up some terms here, but I had a couple of cancellations, so if any of you guys want to come from this video, I will leave my information and WhatsApp me down below. Did you look into all the requirements for running the business yourself? Yes, obviously things like insurance are go without saying. I obviously had to take out insurance, etc. So yes, there are certain things that you need to make sure that you have, not only qualifications wise, but obviously to cover you and your patients. So definitely look into the legalities and things like that of starting something like this. I think that's kind of it in terms of questions. I feel like I answered most of them in the video. Let me know if this was helpful. I can do another one. This is one of my favorite topics, and I just want to say thank you so much to all of you for your continued support, and I cannot believe that I'm doing something like this that I love. And I will also say to you guys, and I'll be really honest, I am not in a position at the moment where I want to leave my job, or you have to take into consideration that this is a growing business. You will not be making crazy revenue at the start. Breaking even at the start was literally all I wanted, and factor that in, you guys. I think, yes, although this is an amazing thing to be doing, factor in lifestyle. Are you going to be able to take money from the business straight away? All these kind of factors really fall into it, and I just want to say that every single booking that I still get, I get butterflies and I get excited, and I love meeting all of you. So there's also a very humbling experience that comes from starting your own business, and yeah, I wanted to put that out there, because it's not all roses and cakes, and you're not going to just be making like money like that straight away. So I love you guys all so much, and obviously don't forget to check out Squarespace for 10% off your very first domain name or website. I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.